This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joire.
Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joire, and today is Thursday, January 3rd, 2019. Wow, I didn't screw that up. I have a very lovely and special guest today, and that is Tech Me Out. Hi, Tech Me Out. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm great. So I heard you are going to CES, so that's exciting.
Yes, it is. I'm really looking forward to it. And it seems like each year it just gets bigger and better. So I'm really, really excited to see what this year holds.
Oh, yeah, it's a complete zoo. So I wanted you on the show because, well, I figured let's talk about CES. Let's talk about what, you've seen some rumors, you've seen some links to things that we're expecting. A bunch of people have been writing stories about that. And I want to kind of hear what you're excited about. What's your take? What is the things that you're going to be running for once you get there?
That's a very good question. I think I may be running for probably maybe to see like some of the mobile upcomings in terms of accessories and things of that nature. The TVs are always interesting as well. So I'll probably be somewhere within that vicinity.
Yeah.
What about you?
So the nice thing is that usually CES is not a big mobile phone show in the certain sense of like people don't really launch phones at CES very often. So I think, there are some rumors of Honor launching their View 20, which is the phone they launched in China in December, which is like a really high-end phone with a punch, like a hole punch through the screen for the front-facing camera. So there's rumors that might be launching at CES in terms of mobile for the US market, right? Because Honor has traditionally launched at least one phone a year at CES. In the past, it was like the Honor series, the Honor X. So it's like Honor 6X, 5X, 6X, 7X last year. I'm not sure if they're going to launch the 8X this year, but they launched the View 10 last year just after CES. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see the View 20 this year. So there's definitely something from Honor. And then who knows, Alcatel usually has something. And then the big players don't usually have anything. Sony might have something. LG, I don't think they're going to release like a phone that's like a phone you can buy. But I think we might see on stage during their keynote, we might see their folding phone.
Yes, there's been a lot of talk circling around a foldable phone. So I don't think I've seen one in person. So if they have one, I'd probably be over there.
Yeah. So what is your take on that? That whole folding phone thing is really weird, right? Like, are you excited about that? Do you want that?
I will say, me personally, coming from a consumer perspective, I don't know if I would want that for myself.
Right.
I'm not going to knock it if anybody else does, but like for me, I think I would have to use it to probably appreciate it, because in looking at it, it's just like, for me, I'd probably just rather stick with the, non-foldable design phones. I'd rather have a phone that is, all screen than foldable. That would
feel
be
the same way. But I think it's cool, right? I mean, as nerds, as tech people, we're like, oh, hey, this could be fun.
Yeah.
And we don't want to miss out on it, right?
Nope. Definitely pushing the envelope of innovation. And I love that. Even if it's something that I may not use, I like when a company kind of thinks a little bit out of the box to just try something new and see how the general public likes it, and then make it better if, as necessary. But even if I don't use it, I think it's still cool.
Yeah, sweet. So the other thing I was going to ask you is like, how much trade shows coverage do you do usually? Like, have you been to MWC or CES in the past?
I have been to CES. I have not been to MWC. I've heard a bit about it, but I haven't personally been to CES.
So do you ever go check out the forbidden fruit booths, as I like to call them? All the cool Chinese phones that we can't get that have these booths like Nubia and ZT. Well, although ZT is sold in the US. But like there's all these different brands that you don't really see usually. Definitely more at MWC than CES. But even CES now, they usually have stands. Like Xiaomi's not here this year, but they had a stand 2 years ago or something at CES. So is that something you get excited about because you don't get to play with these phones very often?
You know what? I did actually, was it last year or the year before? I think I did check them out, and they actually had like a really big booth, and they were doing like, was it basketball or something? So
I'm sure they were doing something
like,
stupid.
Yeah, they were just like doing something to attract the crowd, so to speak, and it worked.
Yep.
But
oh, it always does.
Yeah. But I definitely made my way around there. I don't know if I spent that much time there, but I'll check it out. I'm not opposed to that. Seeing what they have.
Definitely. So when you were at CES in the past, was there like some stuff that just stood out to you that you're hoping to see again this year?
There were some things I know, but it was this LED projection where basically it was like a fan, and the fan was comprised of these little LED bulbs. And when the fan would spin, it would illuminate and create like this 3D image or these words to kind of make it look like it was, coming out towards you a little bit. It was so cool. So it actually had depth. And the name is no good if I can't think of the name. But I did it in like my recap video, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what they are doing this year in terms of improving that. And I'm also excited to see like some of the smart home tech like Nanoleaf. I'm a big fan of theirs. I love their products. So Anchor as well. They tend to create very quality tech products for affordable prices.
Yeah, it's true. In fact, they even have an entire line of earbuds called Zolo now.
Yeah, I have those. They're pretty nice.
Yeah, I just unboxed them recently. They're pretty cool. But it's interesting you bring up Anchor and like, all of these sub-brands that are like, that basically make the ecosystem of phone accessory. There's so much cool stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's as much crap as there's cool stuff, which is what CES is so difficult, right? It's like you go to a booth and some stuff is awesome, some stuff is bad, and you just never know. So it's like it gets pretty tiring after a while.
Yeah. Do you ever check out the Eureka area, I believe it's called, where they have a lot of the come-ups and startups?
Yeah, I like Eureka Park a lot. It gives me a good idea of where things are trending, and I kind of like IoT, and so there's a lot of IoT there, connected devices for your home and stuff. I mean, I feel like, it's been a little overdone. Everything's now connected. Your connected teapot, your connected bathtub, but at the same time, like once you have these things in your life for a while, they become really nice. Like my Nest I love my Nest cameras. I love my Ring doorbell. I like my thermostat. I like the fact that I can remote control lights. It's kind of cool. And now I don't want to go back. So I'm not saying I want everything in my life to be, computer controlled, but anything that, especially with my Google Home Hub, I really love my Google Home Hub. I don't know if you have one.
I don't actually.
It's really cool because it's like Google Home, like the voice control, but at the same time, it has a screen, meaning that, you can basically have like the light switches and the stuff right on the screen all the time. So you don't have to always talk. Like, you can just walk up to it and tap and it turns on the lights, it sets the temperature. And it gives you it's nice to have an option. But again, unlike a smartphone, you don't have to pull it out of your pocket, find the right app. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's such a hassle normally. So I kind of like what they're doing with that. And I think we're going to see a lot of smart speakers this year and smart speakers with screens. What do you think?
I think so. I know there's a rumor that, and I don't know how true it is, of Samsung possibly releasing their speaker at CES. You think there's any weight on that? Yeah, that's been highly anticipated. I'm looking forward to seeing that in person. If so, I definitely would be over there if they revealed it.
Are you a Bixby fan by any chance?
I like Bixby. It has its pros and its cons. I like the fact that it is so smart when it does work properly. In reference to just little things. I did a video on it actually called like, why do people hate Bixby? Because as I was exploring it, I was realizing it was doing these things that I personally had no idea that it could do. And it's certain things like, a lot of these phones have smart assistants, and even Siri is nice, but it's little things that make a difference, such as with Bixby, I could say, answer the phone call and place it on speaker. that place it on speaker is like, you would think it'd be a part of any voice assistant because you're using your voice so you don't have to interact with the phone. But little things like that for me made a difference, because that's one thing that I wish, it's a small detail that I could do with other voice assistants on phones and such. But it did a lot that I didn't realize, that I felt like people should know. So I did the video on it. But I also learned that sometimes it's too sensitive and it either doesn't or does pick up my voice when I don't want it to. Like if I'm not saying the command, it gets triggered. Or if I am saying the command, it won't trigger. So sometimes summoning Bixby can be difficult. But when you issue the command and it works, it's very nice. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I personally am not a huge Bixby fan simply because I don't use a Galaxy as a main phone much. I mean, I have a Note 9 and I love it. It's a great phone, but I kind of use it more like I use any phone. So I try to like basically Google Assistants on every one of my Android phones. And that's kind of what my go-to is really. And I'm sure if I was an iPhone user, I would be using Siri a lot, but I feel like, you know, Bixby, like we kind of love to hate Bixby and we also hate to love Bixby. You know what I'm saying? It's like both sides. Like, I think it does some stuff well, but I think it's way too much of a insular ecosystem, right? It's really about Samsung. And to me, you know, until you have, you know, I still have Google Assistant, like I have a Google Home speakers at the same time as I have, you know, Echo speakers from Amazon because they have a better ecosystem for controlling smart devices and IoT devices in my home. So I find that I use Google Assistant a lot for like, you know, my personal stuff, my calendar, like reminders, flights, all that stuff. You know, also answering questions about things if like I need to look something up, you know, look at maps, look at weather. I find that I use it basically as an assistant, as a brain to help me. Whereas I use Echo, you know, much more as like Amazon, I use much more for like to control things. I tell it to turn on my lights. I tell it to set the thermostat, but I don't really interact with it at all in other ways. Like I never ask it for the weather. I never ask it to call me a lift or anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I live in the kind of weird world of two assistants. And on top of that, you know, my spouse is an iPhone user, so we've got Siri as well. They use Siri more. And also love to hate it and hate to love it, just like I do with Bixby, you know? So for me, it's hard to put my eggs into the Bixby basket simply because I'm not so invested in that ecosystem. And I can understand for someone, it's their main phone. That's all they use for 2 years, you know, because they're on contract and they're going to have that Bixby on their phone. Might as well use it. And maybe it's awesome for them. But for me, it's a lot harder because I jump from device to device. You know, I use PCs, I use Macs. So it's like I want to be able to use an assistant that works on everything.
Yeah,
and
that makes
more
sense.
Importantly, because I already give Google so much of my data, for better or for worse, I get some good results out of that. Like it knows me well. It knows where I live. It knows my patterns. And it really is an assistant. It really helps me plan my life and live my life. And I think, you know, I would have to teach Bixby all this all over again and give it access to my email and calendar and everything for it to become as good. And I think it would always lag behind because I have like 5 years of history using Google Assistant now, you know?
That makes sense.
So that's kind of my thing about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not against it, but I feel like it's not right for me.
Yeah. I could understand and respect that. And like you said, when you do have the voice assistant or something in that realm that is, you know, cross-platform, then that definitely helps when you're using more than one of those devices. So, yeah, I get that. I think for Bixby, the other thing that I wish was a little bit different is the fact that they have the dedicated button. You know, I think it would be so cool and so different if they allowed consumers to like change that button to be whatever they want. It's a quick action button to summon whatever they want. If you're going to actually put the button there, so those that don't like Bixby don't feel forced to use it, you know, because I hear more people, I guess, say that they don't use it than those that they do. So it seems like it'd be a nice feature to have.
I agree. Having used the LG G7 and LG V40, they have a dedicated Google Assistant button. I really wish I could reprogram my Galaxy S9 Plus and my Note 9 to trigger a Google Assistant with that button. And I know they're not going to do that because, they're like, we must use Bixby.
Right.
But hey, yeah, I get where they're coming from, but I just wish, they were smarter about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can feel you there.
But, the other things I think we're going to be seeing a lot of at CES is a lot of AR, VR stuff and a lot of car stuff. And I'm sure there's going to be 5G in every corner of the convention center since they're finding networks are finally live. I'm sure there's going to be demo networks and lots of people showing off hotspots running 5G because the phone's obviously not going to be out for a while. What's your take on all that in no particular order?
I'm excited for those things. I look forward to being able to download a video or a song in like the same or comparable type of speed that I would if I were on Wi-Fi, but I'm on cellular. Like, I know that's a small part of 5G, but it's one of the parts of 5G that I'm looking forward to. And then in reference to the AR and VR, I know, and you were there as well, we both went to the Tech Summit with Qualcomm, and it was kind of cool to see some of the things that we could potentially expect either in the near or far future regarding AR and VR and just how advanced it's becoming. So I'm looking forward to seeing what will be shown at CES and demo that we can actually like experience to just get us even more pumped up. But I think I'm probably between the two, looking forward to testing out the VR. I know Samsung usually has the little chairs that move all around, and I don't know if I'll I don't know if I could do that. But I'll take a mild dose.
I don't even
want
to wait.
The
There's
wait is always
and stuff.
God. It's still cool to watch, though.
It is fun. It's fun to watch other people's misery on these things.
Yes.
Maybe they're not all miserable. I'm sure they're not all miserable.
Probably not.
To me, it seems like something I don't want to do.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that one. Well, obviously, VR, we're going to have HTC, the Vive ecosystem, and we've got Oculus. Oculus Go has been very popular and pretty good product this year. So, I hope that HTC, follows up with something. I know they've already got some similar stuff, but we want, a truly portable, small, completely standalone device. And I think as such, Oculus Go really hit the mark. So let's see what happens. You see what they show us. And I mean, it's not like they're going to show us a smartphone, right?
Yeah, right.
Anymore. So, but yeah, as far as AR, I think that we'll probably see more and more stuff, both like just AR apps that run on smartphones, like games, like, and other I use maybe more useful things. But I think that in terms of headsets, there are probably going to be a few experimental headsets out there, but I expect those to stay pretty expensive for a while longer, like Magic Leap and HoloLens are right now, because I think it's going to take a while before that comes down and priced to the kind of same price point like as an Oculus Go or something, So, I mean, we're going to see a bunch of demos is what I'm saying. I don't think we're going to see too much product. And then, I'm a big car person, so I'm kind of excited about what we're going to see. Okay. Because CS is always so pie in the sky. Yeah. It's like, I always feel like, I'm watching a sci-fi movie when I'm at CS about cars.
God, yes.
And, again, it's for better or for worse because, a lot of it is just hype and BS. But at the same time, it's like, oh, isn't this cool?
Exactly.
Right? Like,
it's that cool factor to it, whether it comes out or not.
Yeah, exactly. Are you into the cars? Is it something you're going to cover or you don't care?
I usually go over there and I look, but I don't know if I've really featured them as much as I have other tech-related things within my videos. It's cool, like you said, to see, but I don't know. I'm not much of a car person as I am a tech person, so I don't know if it's anything. Well, they'll probably only highlight the tech portions of it, I would assume. Maybe with a little bit of car specs as well. But I don't know. I like the concept cars where they have the ones that look like if they ever did come out, it'd be way, way out in the future. I like seeing
That's
those.
What I love about it. It's just so sci-fi. I mean, the car tech, a lot of it is like more demos than anything else, right? But And very rarely do they show real cars there because it's not really what the kind of event that CES is. But at the same time, hey, I like the sci-fi stuff. It's fun.
It is. And it's fun to see in person because like you're saying with sci-fi things, typically it's probably like in a movie or something. It's not right in front of you for you to actually possibly touch, but it's definitely not in front of you for you to see in person. So yeah, to bring it into the home, so to speak, where it's there with you is nice.
Totally. Are you expecting anything on terms of laptops, tablets, anything like that you're excited about? Because obviously Lenovo's going to be there, HP's going to be there, Dell's going to be there. They're all going to be launching new things. Acer's going to be there, Asus, and Asus also does phones, so they might surprise us with something there. Although I expect them to keep that for MWC. But, all of those manufacturers are pretty heavily invested and that and the gaming side of their companies, right? So are you expecting anything fun and exciting there?
Expecting, I would say no, but I'm sure they probably have some cool things, but nothing comes to mind off the top of my head that I would be checking for. Anything, I guess, that you might be, and maybe it'll be something that I might be as well.
Well, I mean, I love thin and light laptops. I'm not as big of a fan of like convertible 2-in-1s that I kind of like, like the iPad with a keyboard cover. Like I think they have their place and I think people love them, but I prefer like a real laptop experience, even if it's like like a yoga where you can flip it all the way around into a tablet. Yeah. I'm looking forward to more choices in that field and maybe kind of like at Computex last year, get to see some futuristic form factors that we haven't thought about. Like I was really excited about the Lenovo Yoga, the Yoga book, the C930, the one that has half of it is e-ink, e-paper, and the other half is a screen, and the e-paper part turns into a keyboard and trackpad, or it turns into a drawing tablet. Did you see that one?
No, I didn't. What is it called again?
That came out at IFA. It's called the Lenovo Yoga book. C930, I believe. Okay. And it's like a very small, thin and light Intel laptop, but instead of having a keyboard and trackpad where the keyboard and trackpad would be, it has like an e-ink, like a panel that looks like a Kindle. And that can be transformed into either a keyboard or a trackpad or a drawing pad, like with a pen. So you can doodle on it. And it's pretty cool because it's pretty creative. And, it's their second generation of this. They did a first gen one a few years ago. And I like these weird form factors. I feel like people experimenting, might not stick, right? Consumers might not like it and buy it, or maybe it's not fleshed out enough and it does kind of like goes back to the drawing board. But I kind of like when they show new stuff like that. So I'm not sure what we're going to see, but I'm hoping that amongst the plethora of tablets and laptops that we're going to be, they're going to be announcing that there's some stuff in there, Yeah, that is kind of fun.
Definitely sounds like a cool idea. That would be nice to see. Because I don't think I've seen that in person or at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's out, so obviously you'll be able to see it at the Lenovo booth. And you should, if you have a Lenovo contact, you should ping them and see if you can get a review in it, because it's kind of fun. I'm waiting for one. I've got the Snapdragon one, the 855 based yoga laptop, the C630, and mostly because I wanted to experience the really long battery life and the LTE and stuff, and this whole like Windows 10 on Snapdragon thing. I wanted to check it out for myself, so I've got one to review right now. I've had it for a few weeks, and I think it's pretty awesome. Honestly, I don't feel like it's too slow, and the battery life is really good. And the LTE, having a computer that you just turn on, it's instantly on and it's instantly online. You don't have to think like, oh, do I have a Wi-Fi password for this place?
Oh, that's nice.
Am I close enough to the Starbucks that I can get Wi-Fi right now? Or do I have to tether my phone and turn it on? Like, you don't have to worry about any of that. It just works,
That's beautiful.
Of course, as reviewers, we get like free access to the data plan and stuff. But people, that does come with a price, obviously, right? So, but stuff like that, I'm always excited to see. So I'm wondering if we're going to see more Snapdragon-based laptops. But yeah, I mean, generally speaking, the other thing I love at CES is all the weird little stuff. Like, towards the end of the show, you go to the show floor and you walk around and you're like Like they have like all these weird flash drives and like cases for your phone and like USB fans and thingies. And a lot of it is total crap, but it's just entertaining and amusing. And I just love walking around going like, oh my God, like think of all this crazy ideas people have come up with and turned into USB devices, you know?
It is. It's really interesting to see, like you said, just all the different things. Like I know they had a robot that everyone seemed to be walking, myself included, walking around with. Like you held her hand and she'd walk with you and she'd look at you and she'd look away and she'd blink and she'd like say certain things. It was just really interesting to kind of see that, and then all the other little robots and what they were doing from the dancing ones and such.
I remember that. How was the experience? Did it feel like, did you feel connected? Did it feel kind of real? Was it fun or was it just creepy?
It was fun and a little creepy, like, but it was fun. I was nervous because I didn't know like what to expect, or not nervous, but like maybe a little apprehensive at first because I didn't know exactly what the robot did until I got over and like was actually watching it. But I could just see like from a distance at first, just people kind of like all around it. And then I see that it just walks with you and talks and such. And so it was just like, it's a robot, but it just reminds you of like movies. It's really, CES is just bringing a lot of the stuff we see in movies to life.
Yeah. But that's the thing, right? Like in some ways we are ahead of ourselves if you compare to some sci-fi. But in the other way, like we're so behind in some areas, right? Like, so it's kind of interesting that CES is kind of that magical place that, as crazy as it is, some of it is really kind of like tells you a lot of what to expect. And that's why I love going, you know, as you said, Eureka Park, like, because it shows you the trends. It really does. You can kind of get a good feel for like what's going to be commonplace. Like, you know, when the smart speakers were coming out, I was like, yeah, this is going to be a big deal. And so once they drop below like $30, everyone's going to have those in their house. And look now, like a lot of people have them in their house. So be interesting to see how that, you know, how that pans out, as it were. Trying to think what else that I saw rumors about. So Sony last year had launched some mid-range phones. I don't know if we're going to see anything from them in terms of mobile, but there's going to have them like Sony, Samsung, LG, TCL, and Hisense, and like a few others we're going to see a lot of 8K TVs, I think, this year.
That's what I'm hearing too.
Like, of course, they're going to be super expensive, but they're going to be like things you'll be able to buy in 6 months. And, you know, only very rich people will. But at the same time, you know, that's how 4K started. Remember, like 4K, you remember how expensive? Like nobody could afford a 4K TV. Now you can go to Best Buy and buy a 4K TV for $300. I mean, it's not a good one, but it's good enough. Like, you know,
that's
so I
true.
don't know. I think it'll be interesting.
Have you seen an 8K TV in person? Like, have you witnessed what that looks like? Not
since like 2 or 3 years ago at CES. I have, and it was kind of mind blowing. Like, it's hard to explain until you see it, and then you're like, wow. it's like, you know, when the first time you see a Quad HD or a 4K display on a phone, and you're like, oh wow. Like, it's like, oh. It's like this. It's that kind of wow where you know, like what you want to say is this is completely unnecessary, but I'm impressed anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like that. I'm
interested, like to see too what will be like the trending items, because you know, like every year there are things that every influencer seems to be covering on their channel. So like last year, I think everybody, or maybe it was the year before, but I'm sure it'll ring a bell when I describe it, which is the Razer phone that docks inside of the laptop.
Oh, that was really cool. That was one of the most exciting things.
Right. That was buzzing like across all of YouTube for all the tech influencers. And then the, I want to say it was the LG TV with the sound bar, where it was like paper thin, and the sound bar had the speakers or the subwoofers or whatever it was that actually, I think it was like speakers, I'm not certain, but it came up out of the sound bar. You familiar with that? Remember. So like it's certain things that just like everybody seemed to be talking about. Like they were just buzzing across all the feeds. So I'm really interested to see what it'll be this year. Like what is going to be that thing that everybody seems to be talking about, you know?
Yeah, I know. Speaking of Razer, I want to say to everyone, I think I mentioned it maybe in one of my previous shows, but for a couple of weeks now, I've had a Razer phone too. So Razer Phone 2, not Razer 2 phone. I was going to say it's not the other way. Razer Phone 2. And I wanted to say that finally, I want to thank the PR people at Razer for finally hooking me up. I know it was hard for them and I know it was a lot of work, but I've got it. And so I'm going to use it at CES and I'll have a verdict for everyone on the show in the future. Maybe after CES, I'll have a show and mention what I think about it. Have you played with one? Do you have a review in it?
Of the Razer phone?
Yeah.
I do not. I haven't played with it at all.
That's a bummer. Did you play with the first one by any chance?
No, I've never, as far as the Razer phones are concerned, like the most of an interaction I've had with them has really been pretty much at CES.
It's interesting, how Razer is like that. Like you either in or you're not. And I've been pushing really hard with them because I was like, look, folks, my podcast is all about phones and we talk about the phones all the time. And I cannot talk about the Razer because you don't send me one. So I don't have anything to say. And, that was last year. And then they never sent me one. And then this year, I had to I bugged them for months and they finally did. And I'm like, look, you're not that special. It's not like you're I hate to say this, I think what they're doing is cool. Don't get me wrong. I think that there's room for gaming phones, and they're definitely the first to come out there with a gaming phone that, was really interesting. And remember, they acquired Nextbit, the company that made the Robin phone before that. And I was really tight with those guys. And so the industrial design, that really square design, is very much from the Robin, from Nextbit Robin days. So they've kind of continued that, but made it all black and matte and badass looking, right? With the little logo that glows in the back and all that. But that, the general industrial design comes from that the company they acquired. So it's not like, to me, it's kind of like a continuation of that, even though Razer is its own thing. And so I was kind of, glad I finally got one. We'll see how it develops.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's move on from CS and the Razer phone onto some other stuff. You did a cool video about top 5 Android apps. And I kind of want to know what, what they were and how you picked them and, tell us about that.
Yeah. For my top 5 Android apps, I tend to use apps that I've already had and have been using. And then I also check for new ones. And I really liked Gbox. That was the first one I recommended because it allows you to have a lot of different tools for Instagram in one app. So you can reduce that folder that you might have titled Instagram with all the different apps to do what one app will. So that one was really nice. But I tend to try to look for apps that I find useful and I feel others may find useful. And I had other apps that I wanted to recommend. And then I'm like, but I felt like that would be for a more niche audience. It was some app called Golden Hour, which I probably will eventually still feature. But I know that's for more of those people out there that are into photography and videography. So with this particular roundup, I wanted it to be more of a general type of app selection, something that I felt like more people could look at and appreciate versus just a very specific audience. And so that was the goal there. And sometimes I feature a game, sometimes I don't. I don't play a lot of games on my phone, and that's probably why. But Chili Snow was the game that I featured in this one, and that was pretty fun. It was one of those games that's so simple, it's hard. And that's pretty much what I said in the video, because it's it's just two actions. You short press or long press, and that's it. But you're trying to get this ball to ski down the slope of snow and not hit the trees. And the closer you get to hitting a tree and maneuvering in between a cluster of trees versus taking the safer route, the higher the points you will receive.
Wow.
And so it just increasingly gets hard. Each race, it's not too long. It's a very nice, quick game that you could play, especially if you're in line waiting somewhere where you just want to do something really quick, not get too engaged, but definitely pass time. That's the app for you.
Oh, cool. So what were the other ones? You mentioned Gbox and Chili Snow. Well, how did you pick them and why, and what did you like? Well, how do you like them, and why did you recommend them?
I like them because Gbox just gave me everything that I needed in one spot for Instagram.
Totally. You don't have to go hunt around for all the different apps.
Exactly. Yeah. It just made it simple. And then I picked Chili Snow just really because it was so fun and easy to play.
Cool.
But that's typically what I look for. I look at apps that not only I like, but I feel others may like as well. Like an app that I would actually sit down and talk to one of my friends about and be like, hey, have you checked out XYZ? That's the approach that I try to use when it comes to finding apps. So
tell me about that other one called Pixels. What does that do?
Pixels. That's really interesting because I think, some people just don't journal, but they want a very quick, brief way to capture their day for, archival purposes. So like if you don't want to write down a whole journal entry about everything that happened, you can just select your mood that you had for that day out of like a few different emojis. So it's like a sad face, happy face, and all that in between. And then you can also like select key terms that described your mood. And if you want, you have a section to write a little bit more information about your day. So it's really simple, but it gives you all that you need really to jot your day. Or to jot things about your day.
That's cool. It's a journaling app.
It's a journaling app, but then it takes it a step further because when you open the app, you're greeted with a calendar that is truly the entire year at a glance. So you have your months at the top, your dates on the left, and you just choose what you want and then input the data so that by the end of the year, you have this big grid of all these different colors that symbolize your mood over the year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So if you see like a lot of green squares, you were happy most of the year. A lot of red, you might have been mad. So, and you can customize the colors so that they speak further to you. So I thought that was really neat.
That is really cool. What about the other two?
The other two, what were my other two? Stuff was one of them, which is a widget app. So I know like personally, sometimes I just need to jot down a few things, whether I'm on a call or something that I just don't want to forget. I don't have time to open up the notes app or I don't feel like it. You literally can jot down notes on your actual home screen.
Got it.
But instead of it just being as simple as you writing down a note, or it's more like a to-do list, actually. Instead of you writing down what you need to complete, it groups it by categories. So you have today, tomorrow, and later, I think, or upcoming or something like that. But that's for things that are like way off in the future. So then you can actually sit there and say, oh, yeah, today I need to go to the grocery store. But tomorrow I need to go, to get my hair done. And later I want to do this. So it allows you to, while you're still on the fly jotting these things down, organize them a bit more.
That's very cool. Yeah. That's always tough, right? Because you're like, you want to keep track, you want to plan, but then you have to start an app and then, in the spur of the moment, it's really frictional, right? Like you really want to be able to like get it done now. And so that's, widgets are not that popular and that used by people on Android, but I think they're really a big differentiator that I think people should use. It's a nice one, just a good app takes advantage of that,
Oh, yeah.
Your last one was Auto Voice Notes. So it's, I suppose, a voice notes app, but what makes it so different?
For me, what made that one different is how smart it is. So it dictates your voice into text. And then in addition to that, you can search for certain words so that it finds your voice memo. So maybe I knew I talked about something, I can't find it, but I know what I talked about. It will actually find that note by me typing in that term. And it dictated pretty well in terms of accuracy. And in addition to doing that, it can also start to learn your voice and then the voices of others. So if you're in a meeting with the same, group of people and you want to record the meeting, it could actually figure out who's speaking and say, this person's speaking and this is what they said. And when you play back the audio, it shows it in line with the text. So it actually plays it back in sync with the transcript. And if you want, you can take photos and it'll sync it in time with the transcript and the pictures. So
that's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And you get 600, I think, minutes, I want to say it was. I can't remember. 600, I want to say minutes for free. And then you enter into the paid section and it syncs across 3 devices for free. So I just felt like it was a really good note-taking app.
Cool.
That wasn't too complicated to use and appreciate. So
yeah, nice. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So that's cool. You know, I wanted to know last week on the show we talked about the top 5. Well, actually, I think maybe it was the week before. We talked about the top 5 phones of 2018. Do you have a top 5? I would love to hear if you have had 5 phones that you played with that really stood out for you.
5. I think I have 4.
Okay. Well, let's do that. Start with number 4.
Okay.
Start backwards.
I would say I don't even know if I want to rank them.
Okay, then don't rank them. You don't have to.
I just got to thinking about that. Would I rank them in this order in which I'm about to put them? But okay. I will say 4 phones that stood out to me would be the OnePlus 6T. I really just, in short, one thing in specific that really appealed to me about that phone was the fact that it took a piece of tech that so many people were seeing but couldn't really obtain, and that is that in-screen fingerprint sensor. It's the first of its kind, I think, that people are able to actually walk in store and purchase.
Yep, absolutely.
And it's unlocked. It's an unlocked phone. It's affordable. I feel like it's a really great option, and I love the innovation there with the in-screen fingerprint reader. So, that I'd say that definitely makes my list. Also, the Google Pixel.
Yeah.
I really love the camera on that. I still have yet to test nighttime, or I think that's what it's called, night vision.
Yeah, night sight, I think.
Night sight, I was still off. But night sight, yeah, I still have yet to test that, but I remember you showed me like an example of it. It's just beautiful what it can do.
It really is impressive, yeah.
Yeah, I like that. And then the Galaxy Note 9, that is a favorite of mine.
Yeah.
I love the S Pen and just the screen. I think the screen and the camera definitely get me every time with that phone. And it's just like a productivity person's dream. So I love the fact that I can like watch a video and then at the bottom, have my notes app or something else open while I'm watching a video, or just 2 apps in general open. I love just how you can multitask. So I'm a multitasker. I'm the type on a computer, I'll have 6 to 7 windows open or 6 to 7 apps open. And then in the web browser, I have like 7 or 8 tabs. Like I'm all over the place. So to have a phone that allows me to kind of have that in my pocket, I like that.
Cool. Yeah.
So that's
the Note 9 is a beast, and you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your number 4? Or the last one?
The last one I would say is the iPhone XS or XS Max.
Okay, XS Max.
Yeah, either or. I really like the camera on those. And that's a feature. I know when I still have to put my review out, but I know when I was testing the camera, and I was hearing, Apple talk about the camera on the XS and XS Max, I was like, okay. I just thought it was going to be one of those incremental changes where you may or may not notice between that and the 10, but there is a very visible difference when it comes to the camera between the two. Even though it's just the S iteration, it's a noticeable difference.
Yeah.
Because I was on a trip and my friend had the 10 and I had the XS. And when we take the same photo, it'd be like, mine will look so much better. With that HDR and such. So, but and the portrait mode was even better. But I like those two as well. I actually am using the XS Max between the two, but I think I'm gonna go to the smaller variant soon. I don't know. I'm missing that form factor for some reason, which is different for me because generally I like the bigger phones.
Yeah. Do you have a bigger Pixel or the smaller one?
I have both.
Okay.
So between the two, though, it's the bigger one that I have been leaning more towards using.
Yeah.
But I think it's time for a change.
So let's see. Galaxy. Yeah, I think that's a good list. I had out of my 4 of my phones were the same. So I had the OnePlus 6T in there. I had that was my top one, tied with the Mate 20 Pro. Because I had to. It's you know if you listen to last week's show or watch my video, I actually published a top 5 phones of 2018 video. I'll put the link in the show notes, but it's basically a recap of the podcast, but more visual. So I had the Mate 20 Pro and the OnePlus 6T tied because they're both super significant in very different ways, and they're both Chinese phones. And then I had the Pixel in there, but I picked the Pixel 3, even though my daily is a Pixel 3 XL. Because I think the Pixel 3 is the sweeter of the two. I mean, I pick the 3 XL in my pocket every day because, like you, I'm super productivity, multitasking driven. Oh yeah, and I need, I need that real estate. I need that battery life, right? But I have to say, from like general overall package, like very few. It's like the iPhone 10 and 10s. Like very few phones are that small and that packed with technology. And so I kind of had to give it a nod for that. I had the Note 9 in there, and I had the iPhone XR as my pick because I feel like, between the battery life, I think it does better job at portraits in portrait mode because it doesn't use the tele lens, so it means it has a faster f-stop, so it gathers more light and all that stuff. And I just like the colors, and I'm also really impressed that even though it's a kind of lower resolution panel, it's an IPS panel that has almost no borders. And, all the IPS panels out there that are like almost full screen are like have a little bit of a chin because of the device, of the screen driver, the display driver. So it's interesting that Apple is the only one has managed to do without that. And so to me, that's kind of why I picked it. Also, it's more affordable. So for people who want an iPhone, they can get one it has all the good specs of the bigger ones now, almost, except for the camera, right? And the better display. So I thought that was kind of cool that Apple made that phone, and I picked it because of that. And my other pick on the list was the LG V40. Because I had to have 5. So, no, not because I shouldn't make it sound like I didn't like it. No, I like the phone. I think that, it had triple camera on the back before the Mate 20 Pro. So it has the regular camera, the tele zoom camera, and then it has an ultra wide angle, which a lot of LG phones have. And the ultra wide angles really helps you be expressive and creative. And of course, the Mate 20 Pro has that as well. But what really set the V40 apart, and the reason I have it in there, is because the audio. It has headphone jack, and it's not just any headphone jack. It's got one of the really best sounding DACs and headphone amps. So if you listen to audio wired instead of Bluetooth, and you're like one of those crazy audio people that really loves really good sound, that's the phone for you. And that's why I figure that was, in the same way as like the Google Pixel is kind of like the camera phone of choice, I figured the V40 is like the sound phone of choice,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that was kind of my take. But is there any other tech this past year that, stood out for you? Like devices you reviewed that you're like, wow, I can't live without this. This is really cool. For me, I mentioned it when we were talking earlier about CES, and the Google Home Hub is really cool. I think they did a really good job with that product. That kind of stood out and came out of nowhere. Anything like that in your world?
Yeah. I would say one in particular that I've been using lately is the Insta1 360X. I hope I didn't mess up the name. Yeah. That is phenomenal with what it can do. Like, it is so small, and it actually captures a really great image, 5K image. And the features of what you can do with that, I think, especially for vloggers or people that just want to, capture different moments of their life, it gives you a different perspective. And it's all how you use it. It allows you to be really creative in terms of having like the 360 effect where it looks like a little ball instead of just around. And then it has like a hyperlapse option where it'll automatically like speed up and slow down the segment in which it recorded. It has bullet time. It just does so much. And the quality of the video looks great. And it takes photos. So I was really impressed with that. And it's a tool, actually, that I plan on using more. I definitely need to make sure I pack that now that I think about it for CES.
Yeah, you need it.
Because that would be nice to capture some moments there. But that really like blew me away recently. And the GoPro's pretty nice with the stabilization. Like they're kind of hand in hand. It's like, which do you use between the two? It all depends on what you want to capture, I would say. You know, because they're both great but similar in what they can do in the sense that they're like action cams. But outside of that term, they're different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But those two, anything else? I'm looking around as I speak. Like anything else in the forefront that I would pick out.
What about
those
the
two,
iPad? The new iPad Pro.
The new iPad. I'm actually, got that in front of me too. That is nice. I really love what they did with that in terms of
I love the industrial design. I really think for me it stands out as one of the most beautiful devices of 2018.
Yes, it really is. And the way it charges the pencil is so much better now.
Yeah, right.
You know, just to be able to let it snap to it and then it's charging. So that was cool. It was really interesting because I did an unboxing, but I didn't like edit it and release it. But it was crazy because like in the unboxing, I had on these earrings and I took the pencil and I was like talking and it like the magnet grabbed my earring. And so I was like, oh my God, this is something that you wouldn't think about, you know, happening. But it's a very common gesture that people do with a pencil or a pen by putting it near their face as they think.
Yeah. And boom, probably should do a blooper reel with that one.
Right. I probably should still like release that in some shape or form. But
like maybe as
I just thought that was interesting.
Or something.
True that. I didn't even think about that. But that would be pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
But that's one of those things where it's just like, you don't think about that. And I guess that highlights the female in tech perspective.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I don't know. Some guys have earrings too. It'd be interesting to see how many people get their iPad magnetic pencil caught on something that's not what they expect. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
I bet you it happens way more than you think.
You know, it probably does.
It's crazy stuff. Yeah. So we've talked about CES and we've talked about, favorite apps, favorite devices. Let's cover some news. There is a few little items. I don't know if you've been following the saga. It's not a saga. I make it sound way more interesting than it really is. But the story behind this Nokia phone with 5 cameras. There's been lots of leaks and rumors in the past that Nokia has been working on a flagship phone with 5 cameras that would potentially have the PureView brand on it, which is a brand that they used in the past when they were making Windows phones before they got acquired by Microsoft and stuff. So it's interesting because, we've seen phones with 3 cameras in the back and 2 in the front, like the LG V40, 3 cameras in the back and 1 in the front, like the Mate 20 Pro. We've got, a weird thing with the Pixel 3, which has 1 in the back but 2 in the front. So we've seen kind of all the combos possible and imaginable, yet we haven't seen, and Galaxy A7, A8, A9, I can't remember, one of the phones that is not sold in the US from Samsung, that's a mid-range phone, has four lenses in the back. So 5, right? So next, it's like the blades on the razors, 3 blades, 4 blades, 5 blades. So I don't know. If this wasn't Nokia, I'd just be rolling my eyes and go, okay, bizarre, interesting. But this is Nokia, and they have a history of making really good camera phones. So I'm kind of intrigued. And we had some leaks this year. I saw a story on Engadget about some much less prototypey looking devices, much more finished looking devices than what we've seen before. Showing the design, it's like shaped in a little they have a hexagon because they have 2 extra sensors in there. So it looks like a weird hexagon layout in the back of the phone. It's kind of cool. Would you be intrigued by that? Like, would you want to find out more about it, or is it just, whatever?
I would. I like the idea of having more than 1 camera on the back. And I'd be interested to see what it looks like. I think I've seen I don't know if it's concepts of what it could be on the back of the Nokia phone with the 5 cameras, but I would like to see it in person and see if the cameras perform well enough where I would want that type of design. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's going to come down to computational photography. You know, I think a lot of it is it's not about the number of lenses. It's not about being able to select your lens. I think there's going to be a bit of that in there.
I got you.
But I think it's more like about using the different lenses combined and do some crazy number crunching to get some better images. So it'll be interesting to see how they do that because, you know, if you look at a phone like the Mate 20 Pro, the V40, you know, the only lens I would add if I had to add a fourth one would be a monochrome sensor because it's nice to have a pure monochrome sensor to be super creative and artsy, right? Like the P20 Pro had a dedicated monochrome sensor before the Mate 20 Pro. So I think that would be cool. But then where's that fifth camera coming from and what does it do? So I'm not quite convinced that these 5 cameras are necessarily like one for each purpose. I think they're more like they're there, and some of them are specific for a purpose. There's probably a tele one, and there's probably a super wide angle one. But I have a feeling that the others are all kind of getting combined, and data is being used from all of them to kind of create better pictures. At least that's what I'm hoping for. So that's kind of what I'm excited about this phone.
Yeah, that's a good perspective. That's a really good perspective. Just them working in harmony and being an awesome camera versus selecting, oh, give me this lens now, you know, kind of thing.
And I think I kind of feel like what Samsung did with the Galaxy A7, 8, 9, whatever it was. I can't remember. I think it might be the A9. But it has 4 lenses in the back, but like one is tele, one is regular, one is wide angle. Okay, so fine. But what's the fourth one for? Portrait. They have like a fourth camera that's just for portrait. I'm like, can't you use the tele camera for that? Like, you just put a fourth camera on the back so you have bragging rights, didn't you? Like, it's totally what it is. Like, there's no reason for that fourth camera to exist, you know?
I got you,
it's kind of interesting, yeah. And speaking of, have you been following the Galaxy S10 rumors saga? There's been like, I've been avoiding talking about it on the podcast, but because I just kind of wanted to wait at least till the new year because now, you know, it's going to probably be announced around Mobile World Congress, and we could be talking about the Galaxy S10 rumors every week at this point. So I don't want to get too much into it, but I kind of thought this one was interesting. A story that, you know, it does kind of make sense. It goes without saying that for the S10 to be competitive, it's going to need to have something similar to Face ID. Like right now, there's the Retina scanner and the face identification that's combined, you know, whatever they call it, hybrid Face ID or whatever. And it's not really the same as what's done on the iPhone. Like what Apple is doing, you know, with using like a projector, an infrared camera, and basically my time of flight measuring depth, actual like 3D depth of every point on your face. That is very specialized, and that's why it works so well, and that's why it's so bulletproof and it works at night, et cetera, et cetera. Nobody's really done that quite as well on Android yet. Oppo Find X had that in the back, the one with the motor slider. Remember that phone? Yeah, a little slider that slides up with a motor. And then they had that on the Mate 20 Pro. They have a similar sensor, but they're not phones you can get easily in the US. You know, they're not phones that are going to be sold at your local operator carrier store. So to me, it's exciting to see that there are finally rumors of Samsung putting some sort of serious Face ID competitor sensor in their phone. Because so far I've just not been impressed with the face and the retina sensing recognition that Samsung has on the Note 9 and the S9. Doesn't work that well for me. So does it work for you?
I honestly don't use it that much, I think. I think I set it up so that it does that and like the fingerprint, like it does more than one method. And I think I end up using one of the others before I use that one.
It's the same with me. I always reach out for the fingerprint somehow.
Yeah, it's like second nature. Like your finger just magically finds back there, like the area back there. And like you said, it is a little bit different than Face ID in terms of how well it will actually scan your face. Yeah. So yeah, it's a noticeable difference actually. You know. So
I'm excited about that. And I think that, you know, I want to see somebody do it right. That's a big player. Definitely. That is sold in the US, that's commonplace. So reading that rumor kind of had me think about the S10 a little more. And, you know, the other rumors of the S10 is, you know, there's going to be potentially 3 or 4 versions, like a light, a regular, and a bigger one. And then the 5G one might be like the 4th option, potentially a 5G dedicated version. And, you know, the rumors are that it's going to have the Infinity O display from the Galaxy A8 Plus, no, A8S. The A8S, which is sold in other countries, is a mid-range phone, but it has the hole punch hole thing, where there's a tiny hole in the screen and the camera, front camera goes through. So apparently the S10 will have that design, which I think is a really cool design, because it means, you know what that means? That means Samsung has managed to avoid having a notch on a phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
Smart. They jumped right past the notch into something else. So that's kind of cool. And, honestly, as much as I love the S9 Plus and Note 9 this year, they're great phones, but they were very evolutionary. And I think it's time for Samsung to give us something a little more exciting, even though they're very solid phones, it just kind of lacked excitement this year a little bit. So I'm kind of looking forward to a little more excitement coming out of my S10, S10 Plus, and Note 10 this year.
Yeah, it's like I'm interested to see how that display would look in person, because I'm all about the infinity display. Like less bezel, more screen. That's I love it. So it's like I'm really interested to see what that little, I don't even know what to call it. I can't call it per se a peephole, but what that area in which they're designating for the sensors in the camera is necessary would look like in person, because we're so used to it connecting and it being like a notch to the top bezel of the phone, but to kind of have a little space in between the bezel and that area is different, right? I don't think anybody else has done that. Yeah. No. So they're the ones, though, that will do that, because something I like about Samsung as well is that they push the envelope for innovation. They will load you down with a bunch of features. You know what I mean? Like they're going to try it.
Yeah.
They'll be the company to try it. Yeah.
And I like that. I like that too. Yeah. Somebody's, even if it doesn't stick, it's okay. And now it used to be that they would do it kind of and it would get in the way, but now they're smarter about it. They try new stuff, but you can turn it off. You don't like it, whatever, so it's not bad. Yeah, cool. Well, listen, we should wrap it up, but I wanted to get your chance for you to tell everyone on the show where they can find you on the internet if they don't know already, where you are and what your handles are and all that good stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter, all under the same handle, which is Tech Me Out. And that's spelled TECHME0UT.
Yeah, it's awesome. Zero.
Yeah, zero. The O is taken, right? Yeah. But thankfully on YouTube, if you type in Tech Me Out with the O, it'll come up. But Instagram and Twitter definitely has to be a 0.
Yeah, see, that's because Google uses their awesome search algorithms for YouTube, but Twitter and Instagram doesn't have access to those great algorithms, so it doesn't figure it out.
Right.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, no, that's great. And, if you are not following Tech Me Out yet on YouTube and all the different platforms, you should. Great content, really, really, really accessible content. And it's always nice to have other women in tech doing their thing. And that's why I'm so stoked that you came to the show today. Thank you for being on it.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me up here. It's always good, like you said, to connect with other women in tech as well. And just talk tech. Tech talk.
Tech, totally.
Exactly. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, and you probably all know where to find me if you're listening to this podcast. I'm at Tankgirl on Twitter and Instagram. That's TNKGRL, like the comic book character without the vowels, because I couldn't get the one with the vowels years and years ago. But same handle on Twitter, same handle on Instagram. You all know that the Mobile Tech Podcast, this podcast is the URL is mobiletechpodcast.com. Pretty straightforward. We're on all the major podcast platforms: Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Overcast. We're on TuneIn Radio, I'm pretty sure, as well. A bunch of other platforms. But if you don't subscribe yet, go ahead and subscribe and tell your friends. And there's a YouTube channel that goes along with my podcast. Mostly unboxing videos, some reviews, some hands-ons, basically whatever I feel like at the time. It's not nearly as polished as what Tech Me Out does, or a lot of the other YouTube creators I've had on the show have really much more polished work. I kind of just do it for fun to give the audience a chance to see the devices I'm talking about, to have some visuals to go with the show, basically. So the YouTube channel is, it's my name. So it's youtube.com/Miriam Joire, Miriam with a Y. It's basically called the Mobile Tech Podcast channel, but it's really a supplement to the show. So subscribe to that as well and tell your friends and all that good stuff. And, I want to also thank Audible, our sponsor. Audible.com is basically the place to go for audiobooks. If you like to listen to books instead of reading them, this is really the platform I think that has the best variety and choice. And if you do want to support the podcast and you want to sign up because you don't or use Audible and you want to get a 30-day free trial and help the podcast along, then please do that. There's a link in the show notes. It's audibletrial.com/mobiletech. That's audibletrial.com/mobiletech. So go there and sign up if you like listening to books instead of reading them, or maybe you can't read them because of your work or your commute or whatever. So do that and support the podcast. And yeah, thanks again for being on. Check me out.
Thank you. I appreciate your time and having me up here as well. It's been pretty cool.
I hope I run into you at CES.
Yes, as do I. We definitely have to catch up and see if any of these things that we talked about
yeah, we can
are actually there.
It'll be great.
Yeah,
cool.
Reconnect.
Awesome, we'll do. All right, folks, stay tuned. We'll have another show next week. Probably have a couple of shows next week. I'm hoping to have 2 shows from CES. Definitely going to have one early in the week, kind of recapping the press days like I did last year. And then I'll try to have another one, kind of more of a group podcast, more kind of fun, with all the other journalists sharing our thoughts on journalists, podcasters, YouTubers. I just mean the word in general. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you next week. Cheers, everybody.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.